So this is part 2 of evolution of the brain. Oh no, I haven't gone full screen. You've seen behind the curtain. Dun dun dun. So we finished the last screencast looking at brain mass to body mass ratio and how the bigger your brain relative to your body size is an indication of intelligence, basically, on average. And we can call this encephalization. So the increase in the complexity and relative size of the brain that we talked about in the last screencast is referred to as encephalization. It also involves a shift of function from inside the brain to parts on the outside, which is less important to us. So we're going to recognize that there has been significant encephalization throughout our ancestry over just a very short amount of time, being just a few million years. Just a few million, whatever. And there's a calculation you can do to kind of recognize this ratio as a value in itself. And you get what we call the Uncivilization Quotient, which is the ratio of brain to body mass. And we can see here that Homo sapiens with an EQ of 6.28 is significantly larger than our closest living relative, which is 2.38 in the chimpanzee. And everyone kind of in that family, the old world monkeys and the apes, have kind of similar EQs. But what we recognize is that this large gap here between Homo sapiens and chimpanzee is filled by analyzing the encephalization of our ancestors in the prehistoric line of humans. So we're really filling that gap, looking at fossils of our ancestors, and we'll talk about how we do that a little bit. So there were two main trends that we were looking at in the brain, being overall size of the brain and complexity of the folding in the brain, being two overall changes. But there are also certain parts of the brain that have undergone significant change. One of those being the frontal lobe. So this is right behind your forehead, and that has enlarged significantly over recent years to accommodate abstract and logical thought. So being able to imagine something that doesn't exist yet and plan and create it is only possible with abstract thought and a frontal lobe. So we'll talk more about how our behavior represents that shift later on, but right now we need to recognize and perhaps write down what the frontal lobe is responsible for, which is abstract, logical thought, imagination, language and artistic ability, all of those abstract ideas, emotional expression, problem solving, and memory. So ideas and stuff, basically. Okay, and there was a significant trend towards being larger, more pronounced. So we have quite a significant forehead compared to our AP friends, and it is more folded. And this provides more surface area for all of those functions that we just talked about. The cerebellum is that just means mini brain, is literally what it means. And that is this literally looks like a mini brain under your brain, responsible for your balance and coordination. So of course that underwent extreme changes in a shift from walking on four legs to balancing on two, and it receives instructions from the spinal cord and then regulates the motor movements of the body. Smoothing out voluntary movements like posture, balance, and speech. So making sure everything runs smoothly. And this also facilitated more dexterous, precise movements, such as our precision grip and things like that. Brainstem, less important, but still underwent some unique changes, especially when we think about the foramen magnum and how the brainstem, which is the piece of the brain that kind of blends into the spinal cord, would have had to shift its position, as there was a selection for a movement in the foramen magnum to support a change in locomotion. If we were in class, you would be getting a handout of this right now, with all the names removed and then putting the names on. But cool. If you want to just read that, you can pause. Two really interesting areas of the brain to look at. So we're about to explore Wernicke's area and Brocas area, named after two scientists that have done extensive work in these two areas of the brain. I want you to pause this video perhaps, or go back later, but watch this YouTube video linked in the slides, which are on Hapara, which is one of those like 2 minutes of explaining what these two areas are responsible for. So they're both involved in language, but they do slightly different jobs. So Wernicke's area is involved in the comprehension, understanding, and connecting of ideas. So it sends ideas for speaking to the areas of the brain that are involved in putting them together physically. So Wernicke's area is comprehension, understanding what you're hearing and then what you're about to say back. Broca's area is responsible for actually physically instructing the muscles in the mouth to move to create the words that you want to say. So one is comprehension and understanding of what you're saying and versus what you want to say. And the other is more about how you actually do that. Okay, so if you go onto the slides yourself, you'll find two adorable videos of two men suffering from aphasias, which is basically dysfunctional areas, which is often the result of a stroke. So you can see this man here, he has Wernicke's aphasia. There isn't any difficulty with him physically creating the words, which is the job of Brocas, but he can't connect his ideas, his thoughts into what he wants to say, and so they all come out muddled. He can say them physically fine, but the comprehension is compromised. And then the next video is the opposite. So this man has what we call Brocas aphasia, and he knows what he wants to say and can comprehend the order of the words he wants to produce, but the actual physical production of the words is where there is an issue due to, again, I'm pretty sure he also had a stroke, and it affected this area of his brain. So knowing what he wants to say, comprehending what he wants to say, but actually producing the sounds themselves is a real struggle. So yeah, go and watch those. They are really interesting. So it's important to consider how selection for large capacities in our brains would have also brought with it some disadvantages, as every selection does. Every adaptation, has positives and negatives. And in this case, having a large brain requires extensive energy for growth and maintenance, particularly in children. So the human brain represents about 2.5% of your body weight and accounts for 22% of resting metabolic needs. So even when you're just chilling, your brain is just constantly, chomping up all of your energy needs. And so, it requires a lot of fuel. The energetic costs of brain maintenance for modern humans are about 3 times that of chimpanzee. So what we can infer from that is that it must confer a serious selective advantage for it to be selected for by nature, regardless of the fact that it requires so much energy. Obviously brains do not preserve well, providing us with a fossil record, but how can we make, assumptions, predictions about the developmental state of our ancestors, and thinking about their brains if we can't see their brains? We can use a process called endocasting, which is casting the inside of the cranium. And here is an example to the right. So it's literally sealing up any cracks and then pouring a rubber, kind of liquid rubber into the brain case through the foramen magnum, sloshing it around until it, covers all the surfaces, letting it set and then pulling it out. And you can see where endocranial bulges occur, and these indicate, large pieces of the brain in certain areas that were more developed. And that is all. So go back and watch those videos, make some notes about the significant areas of the brain that we learnt today, but also their trend over time. And in most cases, thinking back, I'm pretty sure the trend in all of them is just that they got larger, more pronounced or more folded, which accommodated more, functions. Cool. So that's it for this term. When we come back from holiday, we will look at cultural evolution. So you need to be really comfortable with all the changes that occurred in the body throughout human evolution. So that's looking at the skeleton, specifically, the hand, the skull, the brain, and everything else. And yeah, what they can indicate to us about locomotion, diet, all of these shifts. And then we'll look at how that led to a lot of our cultural evolution over time and how they created positive feedback, loops with each other and ended with us. Perfection. No jokes. Okay, enjoy your holiday and I will see you, quote unquote, when we get back. Bye.